Here's an explanation of what Donald Trump meant by saying the airspace of Venezuela should be considered closed, why this matters, and what the reaction has been. Newspaper. What Trump said. On November 29, 2025, Trump posted on his social media platform that the airspace, above and surrounding Venezuela, should be considered closed in its entirety. His message was addressed broadly to airlines, pilots, drug dealers, and human traffickers, urging them to avoid the airspace. He offered no further details. There was no official decree published, no flight ban order officially invoked, and no explanation of how such a closure would be enforced. Prohibited. What closed airspace implies, and what is unclear. Saying a country's airspace is closed generally implies that no aircraft, civilian or otherwise, should enter. In practice, that could mean airlines avoid overflying or landing in Venezuela. Commercial, humanitarian, and private flights get disrupted or suspended. Potentially, a de facto no-fly zone, which could be enforced by military means. However, in this case, there is no public legal or international law basis that gives one sovereign nation the right to unilaterally close another nation's airspace. The U.S. government, Pentagon, White House did not release orders or official guidance to implement or enforce such closure. So effectively, Trump's statement is a warning or political signal, rather than a formal, enforceable policy, at least for now. Because of this ambiguity, many analysts say the declaration raises more questions than answers. Bullseye. Why Trump said this, context and goals. For months, the U.S. has repeatedly accused Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his government of being linked to drug trafficking and narco-terrorism. The airspace announcement comes alongside a major U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean, maritime strikes against vessels alleged to be smuggling drugs, and public threats of expanding operations to land, suggesting a stepping up of pressure on Maduro's regime. By warning airlines and traffickers to avoid Venezuelan airspace, Trump appears to be signaling that the U.S. is tightening all levers, political, economic, military, to force regime change or to weaken the Maduro government. Globe reaction, condemnation, fear and uncertainty. The government of Venezuela condemned the statement as a colonialist threat, saying it violates the country's sovereignty and international law. Some think tank analysts and former diplomats view the move as a direct escalation, effectively a precursor to broader military or covert operations. At the same time, opponents of the closure warn that this could further destabilize Venezuela and worsen humanitarian conditions, restricted access to flights, supplies, evacuation, or aid. For airlines and international travel, the uncertainty is already leading to flight cancellations or rerouting, with warnings from aviation regulators about increased risks in the region. Checkmark. What's known, and what remains speculative. Checkmark. Known facts. What's unclear or speculative. Trump issued a public post declaring Venezuelan airspace closed in its entirety. No official international or U.S. legal mechanism has been enacted to enforce such closure. Venezuela's government rejected the declaration, calling it a sovereign violation. It is unclear whether this is only rhetorical escalation or a precursor to actual military enforcement or air blockade. The move comes amid increased U.S. military presence, maritime strikes, and counter-drug operations in near Venezuelan territory. The real motive might go beyond drug trafficking concerns, possibly regime destabilization or geopolitical pressure. Analysts debate U.S. intentions. Magnifying glass. My assessment, a strategic signal, not yet a legal blockade. In my view, the statement by Trump is primarily a strategic and symbolic signal, part of a broader campaign of pressure against Maduro's government. Given the lack of legal basis, formal enforcement measures, or international buy-in, it seems unlikely there is an immediate full-scale, no-fly zone. Instead, the declaration serves to raise risk and uncertainty for airlines, transport, and humanitarian operations. Amplify the psychological and diplomatic pressure on Venezuela and its allies, signaling the U.S. is ready for further escalation. Provide a pretext, if so chosen, for future military or covert intervention under the guise of counter-drug operations. That said, the move already has real-world consequences: disrupted flights, fear among civilians, heightened diplomatic tension, and a greater possibility of confrontation.